Okay, so this is image 231 and it's called Untitled, number 228, from the History Portrait series by Cindy Sherman. It's from 1990 and this is a photograph. Cindy Sherman is a contemporary photographer who is widely recognized as a key artist in the women's movement. She is best known for her elaborate photographs featuring herself in various stage roles. Her work focuses special attention on exploring stereotypical images of women. And in Sherman's History Portraits, it is a series of 35 photographs that reinterpret the construction of stereotypes of old master paintings. Cindy Sherman was born in 1954 in New Jersey, grew up in Long Island or New York when suburbia was just like exploding. And so she really went through, she was born in 1954, so she went through all of the big events that happened in the last 60 years. She was 9 when JFK was killed. She was 11 when Malcolm X was killed. A teenager during the late 60s with MLK, RFK, Vietnam, Watergate. By the time she was 18, American optimism was gone, and what replaced it was disillusionment. In the aftermath of the Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal, the resignation of Nixon, then this 1970s recession, the oil crisis, the Iranian Revolution. And I mean, so she really lived through a lot, which many of these artists obviously did. But Sherman attended college and focused first on painting, then photography. Her art is deeply informed by feminist theory and psychoanalysis and deconstruction. She focuses on identity, politics, post-colonial theories. Ideas of representation were all incorporated in her art. So what Sherman would do, because this is a picture of her, that is her in this picture that you're seeing. So Sherman invents personas and tableaus that examine the construction of identity and the artifice of photography. To create her image, she assumes multiple roles. She is the photographer, she is the model, the makeup artist, the hairdresser, and the stylist. Whether portraying a career girl, which is one of her famous pieces, she portrays a blonde bombshell, a fashion victim, she has some really weird clown pictures, or a society lady of a certain age. For over 35 years, this relentlessly adventurous artist has created an eloquent and provocative body of work that resonates deeply in our visual culture. Sherman's works in series, and each of her bodies of work is self-contained and internally coherent, but we have themes that recur throughout her career. I saw a special exhibit of a lot of her portraits at the Broad at the end of the school year last year, and I took a ton of pictures. So I'm going to try to show you guys that after the test, because I found what she did fascinating, because these are photographs and they are like history portraits are supposed to be extremely large. Well, her portraits of these are larger than life size. So they're huge and they're photographs. So I guess I'm hoping you guys know what the topic of this is, or what the content is, just by looking at it, but it should take you back to day one. This piece is Judith and Holofernes, and it's based, this is a contemporary photograph based on Allori's painting, but it's altered in a way that changes its original meaning. So the photo employs a deliberately cheap-looking photographic style that brings out the sinister qualities of Allori's original. And then the photo also pokes fun at the tradition of depicting women in art as beautiful destroyers of men. It suggests that to see women this way is a ridiculous idea that should not be confused with reality. Sherman has photographed herself as Judith, but at the same time hides her identity under heavy makeup to suggest the need for women to fight against the attitudes of this kind. She said, "I'm trying to make other people recognize something of themselves rather than me." Cindy Sherman is one of the best and known and important photographers working today, and her decades-long performative practice of photographing herself under different guises has produced many of contemporary art's most iconic and influential images. At the heart of Sherman's work is a multitude of identity of stereotypes that have arisen throughout both history of art as well as the history of advertising, cinema, and media. Sherman reveals and dismantles these stereotypes as well as the mechanics of their production through producing series after series of photographs on particular images and making procedures. The Broad has a huge collection, and it's been dedicated to the work of Sherman for over 30 years, and its holdings of Cindy Sherman's paintings are unmatched. So in her first works were small black and white photographs known as untitled film stills, and explored the images of women in the films in the 50s and 60s. And Sherman's images suggest genre rather than like specific recognizable films. And so she's showing the stereotypical actress. The first 6 images of the series, of which the Broad Art Foundation has, is the film still number 6. It depicts a blonde actress at various stages in her career. And so here we see that Sherman is trying to show, in other ones too, that a woman needs to stay diligent, to stay-at-home wife who must remain sexually attractive and available to her husband. In 1979, she depicts a seductress waiting at home for her lover. In a more recent series, Sherman made larger color photographs, restaging the settings of various European portrait paintings of the 15th through early 19th century. And so, let's see. She did this while working and living in Rome. However, she did not go and visit the great works of the Italian Renaissance and Baroque art that was all around her, but rather she chose to look at reproduction of them in books. In this way, she remained a consumer of the print culture, utilizing only what images were available to any person anywhere in the world. And then we know the story of Judith using her sexuality to kill Holofernes. And because she is a woman who was able to murder a man, Judith has always been a heroine, and that engendered great anxiety for men. Cindy Sherman photograph captures that. She's dressed in red, the color of lust and seduction, as well as the color of blood. She fills the entire length of a 7-foot-tall photograph. Her head and feet are both cropped, indicating that she's so large that she cannot be contained by the image. While her face is resolute, Holofernes is grotesque and even comedic. And although Sherman's interpretation of Judith has in common with Allori's painting, both in regards to the amount of color saturation of the fabric, it is likely that she was inspired by the sculpture of Judith and Holofernes as well. So here's a few, wrong thing, sorry. Just to remind you guys of some of the other Judiths. So this is the Allori painting, and so that you can see. And then other ones you've seen, obviously, this is Artemisia Gentileschi's, one of her views of it, that's showing the strong, powerful woman sawing off a man's head. And then in contrast, we have, well, here's the one we started off with the school year. So you guys see that one. And then in contrast to all those, we also have Caravaggio's version of a very dainty looking Judith, a very gorgeous and beautiful looking Judith, who is, it doesn't look even possible that she's able to saw off the head of Holofernes, but she does. Oops, let me go back. So let's see, I'm trying to think of what else to add to this, because she not only did Judith and Holofernes, but she does a lot for the other ones. Let's see, another thing that she's going to do is Judith is actually inspired by some Renaissance artists, and I took a picture of it when I was in Rome this year. I'm sorry, when I was in Florence this year. Botticelli did a version of Judith and Holofernes, and it's called Judith Leaving the Tent. And Botticelli follows the biblical account that adorns Judith in beautiful robes, and she holds Holofernes' razor-sharp sword in her right hand. but no blood stains are on here, and there's no sword drips off of his head. So Botticelli's and Sherman's composition are strikingly similar, and so she's holding the mask-like head in her right hand and the dagger in her left hand. So Sherman's trying to include details that depart from idealized portraits that we've seen before of Judith and Holofernes. And so it's supposed to underscore Judith's image as a clever woman who's outsmarted the invincible Assyrian commander. And Sherman wanted to present him as a grotesque old man. And these empowering images reaffirm Judith as a powerful woman who has to overcome the limitations of a male dominated society. So I will show you guys more of her history portraits. And I have a book in class about her history portraits. So I find her just fascinating just because like she is just like the Pure Land one, she is starring in this photo. Okay, so that's Untitled number 228.